Well, hello to Mystic Brew, and I am Radagast. So this is going to be a short video, and hold on a second here. Like to mute when I do that. Thank you to all of the people who have written very nice comments about the song that I put in the last video. I do have at least one other song that I feel was practiced well enough for me to engineer and put up soon enough. The engineering definitely takes time, and I have to cut out the songs from the main thing and then engineer them. And the software I'm using is not something I've used a lot, so there's a learning curve on me. So things that might take somebody, I don't know, 10 minutes might take me 2 hours. But then let me show you. All the songs that you heard were recorded on this little old-fashioned Tascam. These here are the mics that did the recording. They're internal mics. Hope I didn't block my voice too much on that one. So it's not the most sophisticated recording device, and it's kind of placed in the room where it will hopefully pick up the 3 different instruments well enough. But just thank you so much for the feedback. I'm really happy to present this music because of its organic nature, and because it's just musicians writing music based on being a human being and not trying to satisfy a genre. A genre in many ways is good for marketing, for people who want to get your music in front of people who declare themselves to want a certain kind of music. I personally think that most humans just like good music. I mean, people can be trained into identifying with a genre of music to, in many ways, kind of, I don't know, fortify is not the word I want, to kind of complement their lifestyles. I mean, in the 60s, a lot of that music and what was written into it was actually supporting what was going on in the organic world. And so what I would, part of our music is based on joy. There is certain other aspects of the music that will, that'll creep into the music or be placed into the music, because being human isn't all joy, and that's okay, because it makes the joy that much sweeter. And so that there's that, and of course I will be So that's Uncle Butchie. I also write my own music, but as a one-person band. That means multiple layering. That means working with drum machines. To get out even one song could be a week event. So I don't know how much of my own music will be hitting things unless I get into, who knows, a mood might get into me and suddenly I just start cranking things out. So that's one. And then, of course, I also have different ambient. I have some really nice software that is kind of based on almost like Renaissance type stuff. So if I could kind of just work with some of that where it's really just not so multi-instrumental as multi-layered, that could get interesting. But I'm really getting into the music. I probably should take my camera and go out. I have a garden coming up, which I'm really quite pleased with. It's really, I remember when it was just a bare ground from where a trail had been. So I dug up the bare ground, threw some compost in there, threw some seeds, and especially some of the seeds, like seeds for cucumbers and watermelons. They're like the size of the seeds that you'll see in a cucumber or watermelon. But I did plant some beets, some kale, and carrots that didn't do well, and now the cucumbers and the watermelon were in between the carrots, and both of them have kind of shaded over the carrots just as they were finally starting to blossom. So I might have to do some new stuff on the carrots if I go for that. But the cucumbers and watermelon are doing really well. But the really little seeds, to see the little seeds that were kale, and now this kale is like this small bush, and I've actually picked off some leaves and chewed them, and it's really delicious. So just to remember that, this is part of the fun of the real magic of working with Mother Earth, where there are these seeds, and in these little teeny seeds are hidden these amazing packages that basically earth, water, and enough warmth and sun will make them just magically appear. And there's really great joy in working with nature. Where again, for the slightest little bit of investment, of some time, some intention, some love, and you get back all of this without interest. This is the real system that humans belong to, the one where you pay up front. Your payment is up front in the form of your own intention, your understanding of your skill, a little bit of labor, the continuing love to support it, and it's all yours. Of course, if you decide to sell some of that, well, then you're going to have a middle person who says, oh, so you exchange some money. Well, we get a portion of that. That's the system that we're up against. That's the system that has to go away. The endless middle people. I don't want to just call it middle men. I mean, although it's probably dominated by men. When it comes to being thieving and lazy, men do not have a monopoly on that. And so I guess that was it. It was music. The fact, I'm going to be continuing with what I'm going to call, I guess, kind of like the Mother Earth or Gaia series, which is really about liberation from the past couple of thousand years of social engineering, deep spiritual programming, and getting free of that so that we can be back on planet Earth instead of this world that was built onto, constructed on the planet through social engineers, and that went into high gear when they were able to plant this external angry sky god into our minds and think that that was what we needed to satisfy. That, in other words, that this angry sky god, who seemed to have a real problem with the creation that it is claiming it created, and I think that's a false claim. To me, the behavior shows that this is somebody who's trying to manage a system that it had nothing to do with, which is why we see all this fuckery, all of these different systems, whether it's religions or business or governments or police or all these other things that get in the way. This is the only claim of this entity on this planet, is the ability to control what it managed to basically abscond or take away or to steal through the fact that this mind virus made people violent. It saw other human beings as a form of pestilence that need to be stamped out. This is not something of the ancient world. Our ancient roots are not based on us judging that somebody's thinking a bad thought and that how their desire to worship what they perceive as divinity can somehow be wrong and worthy of death. That is when the extreme fuckery began, and it's at most 6,000 years old, and I think it's more like 3,000 or 4,000 years old, as far as when we start having a warrior caste. You have to realize the warrior caste is a group of us that gets hired away to represent the people who are antagonistic against us, or antagonistic towards our way of living. And so what they do is, they hire away, and this is something that humans can stop. They can stop allowing their brothers, sisters, fathers, mothers, whatever, from being hired away from humanity to oppress humanity. And that has largely been whether it's an army or a police force, these are people who've been tricked away from us. And a lot of that has to do with, the system first creates scarcity, and by controlling things, and then what happens is, in this scarcity, certain people are offered less scarcity if they'll only police their own people. And so these are the kinds of mind games that have been played against us that we have to see, and we can't expect anybody who set this system up to fix that system. We can't really expect anybody we voted into that system to be able to do much about that system. The change is going to have to come from the populace, and in certain cases the voters, not just sending people into the cesspool of Washington, D.C., but holding them accountable every day. What is their vote? What have they done? These people these people care about what you think, because they have to operate on what looks like consent. And there's a lot of ways to kind of shade what looks like consent. It's pretty hard to shade dissent. And dissent is our greatest tool, especially now with the internet, the ability to communicate to each other, to let those who go into these different places, whether it's the state level or the federal level, and think that they've escaped the voters. They think that because the voters basically will see them do things they don't like and then just grumble about it. Grumbling doesn't work. Grumbling is a form of suffering, and suffering is a form of consent that you to something that you don't like. You must dissent. You must say, not in my name. That does not represent me. That is null and void, because you speak for us and you're not speaking for us. So since you don't speak for us, you haven't spoken. And that comes from our own sense of sovereignty, and that's something we're going to have to build. But it can be built quickly, because it's really, this whole awake and aware thing, we must become awake and aware to the control systems. The division system is the biggest one. And that's why when I mention, let's take the warrior caste, whether it's police or military. My whole thing is I don't want to make these humans who've made poor choices like, we need to write you off. No, we need to reclaim you. And the best way sometimes to reclaim these lost people is through their own families. So if somebody in the military is married, they have a mother, a father, children. You mothers, fathers, the relatives of people that have been bought away are the greatest tools we have to get inside their heads and let them know the decision they made doesn't work for humanity. Getting the bills paid while a lot of people are being abused, or paying your bills while you abuse your fellow human beings, is not an acceptable strategy. Because what that does is it separates the people. Well, my family's provided for. Unfortunately, to provide for my family, I had to bust down the door of your family. You think that works? No, that's where the division is. Thinking that we humans must fight amongst each other for the crumbs that the ones who set this all up offer us. That is a setup, and the only way to getting at that setup is to be aware of it. And then we turn to each other for support. We stop looking to the government to fix our problems. The government won't fix our problems. The government creates our problems. And I like to call them the gooberment, because it's a bunch of goobers. Anyway, so this is going to be a short one. And also, that's right, so in about an hour, okay, so it's 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Raksha Moose is doing a Sunday show. Unless I'm doing something like I could not make the Thursday show because I was rehearsing. I'm working with two different bands currently. Uncle Butchie's my band. I'm with Forever Now because their bass player couldn't do a certain gig called Gypsy Fest, so I'm filling in for that. Hope to meet some good people, and allow also to meet people that maybe Uncle Butchie can play with in the future. So I'm doing a lot of musical stuff, working in my garden, but I would like to encourage anybody who sees this in the next hour, if at 8 o'clock you're not doing anything, please tune in to Raksha Moose. He's one of my recommended picks, so you can click into him that way. That's in an hour. I have to go out and get some tobacco. And I really hope, because usually it's a relatively small crew. I'll know if anybody's heard this because I kind of know the numbers that show up there. Raksha has been delivering some really good medicine for human beings, and especially for human beings looking for how we work together to become the force to be reckoned with. And we have the numbers, we just don't have the coordination and unity yet. Coordination and unity will make us the force that must be reckoned with. But we must be able to reckon with each other first. And one of the things that Raksha Moose is great about elucidating and pointing at is all of this dysfunction. And a lot of it having to do with us not having done our inner work and getting our emotional body into a place of not always being so brittle and fragile, where we're able to roll, where the old saying, sticks and stones may break my bones, but names can never harm me. Well, much of that has to be kind of, I think, represenced, because much of the na-na-na-na and division is based on words. Nobody threw sticks, nobody threw stones. People said something, and then people take offense. And Raksha speaks on it, I speak on it. Taking offense, okay? Taking. Nobody gave it, you took it. Now, so every once in a while, people give offense, and I'm quite sure if somebody actually gives offense, you will see that the people around you will say to the person who gave offense, that was not proper. That's not how we talk to each other. But if we're not talking to each other in ways that are meant to give offense, and you take offense, that's on you. Taking offense, you take. It's actually, I guess we won't call it theft, but you took it. It was an option. You didn't have to take it, but you took it. And once you take it, you're the subject of the discussion, not the person who didn't give offense. So Raksha's really good on that, and he does kind of these walkabouts around subjects that I feel cover the ground. It's almost like a good rain. It really penetrates to the roots. So I encourage everybody to join Raksha, and I'll be part of the live chat in an hour at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I guess it's at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. So that's gonna end this video, this Mystic Brew. My love to you all. Let's really start to give everybody blanket love. Understand that certain people, you may not like the way they roll, but if we listen in a little bit, and then based on that listening and hearing, if we enter into dialogues with people, we can probably find out that we can understand each other, that much of this stuff is misunderstanding language, misunderstanding intent, and text is no way to clear things up. Text is 20% of how humans communicate. In other words, through the words themselves. Take away the inflection, the glint in the eye, the body language, the tone. I mean, that is the real message. So much of what we're doing these days, we're reacting to posts, we might react to something in a live chat. You understood 20% of what was being said. There is no way that a person just using text can convey more than 20% of their intent without saying the sentence and then follow-up sentences explaining all the nuances. In real communication, in human communication, which is based on the ability to hear and see the words being said by a speaker. And the beauty of the system is because of modern technology, if we use the technology instead of letting the technology use us, we have a modern technology that allows us to communicate the way humans were meant to, by being able to see our face, hear the tone of our voice, and really get what people are trying to get across when they use language. And Moose does a great job of it. And so I invite everybody to join us in an hour for those who watch this before it begins. And if you watch it after it begins, after you watch this, you might want to jump over there. And so so let me get back to lots of love. Remember the concept of not in my name. There is a lot of things that are being done by our governments that is being done in our name. And we have to say, no. When you're doing this stuff out on a world stage and you're not representing us, then in other words, we disavow you. You do not represent us. If you're going to go out there and talk shit and then say, the United States, whatever. No, the United States of America is made up of people. The United States of America is not a government. It is a people. And people going to have to say whether or not the government is speaking in your name or not. And that's how government gets its legitimacy. Government only gets its legitimacy from the people. And if we're going to hold our government to account, we have to be legitimate with each other. Okay, you cannot jump to the step of calling your government out when we actually have a lot more to call ourselves out on first, and that shit can be cleared up in a week. It really could. Being honest with ourselves allows hundreds, if not thousands, of years of social engineering to very quickly start falling apart. But it's up to us. It's up to us through our dedication to our own awakening, and really becoming aware, situational awareness of what the fuck is going on around us. Okay? For real. And also that whole thing is every time you point a finger at, whether it's the cabal, the controllers, whatever you want to call them, remember the three fingers pointing back at you. Take a look in the mirror. Because again, much of the things I hear about, much of the contention in our community that I hear has almost nothing to do with them, other than maybe you picked up an idea that they put in your head and now you're running with it, and you're running with a bad idea. So when you start riffing into the community off a bad idea, they're going to be bad riffs. All right, so not in our name. Love each other. Stay as sane as you can. And love for all, hatred for none. That means hatred for no human beings. The systems that certain human beings have set up that are really ugly, we can hate those systems. But the humans can be reclaimed, except those who can't. And the ones who can't are small in number. And they're small enough in number that they actually become a non-issue when the rest of us decide to join humanity. And I'll see you next time.